gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to this edition of Political Smackdown. Thank you for being with us, and we hope as you listen to this 30 minutes that you'll learn something. I'm Betsy Wells, your host, and we have with us our regular crew. On my right is Michael Philbeck, former mayor of Shelby. On my left is Wes Westmoreland, former state senator. And on my other left is Andy Dedman, former majority whip of the North Carolina House of Representatives. Well, gentlemen, we have lots going on in the news. More bad news for Trump. Fannie Willis is still on the case in Georgia. He may have to sell Trump Tower in Manhattan to meet the huge amounts that he has been assigned by the judges. What do you think? What will happen if he doesn't fork up the $454 million fine? What about the $93 million he's been supposed to pay to Miss Carroll? Is this news just bombast, or is he serious about his finances not being able to meet these? Mike, what do you think? Go ahead and start.
I'll yield my time.
You've missed Betsy, had you?
Well,
I bet you didn't talk about Trump.
Betsy, I don't know why you think that the Fannie Willis thing is bad news for Trump. The judge, by the time we talk about it, has already told them they could go ahead and appeal to the Georgia Court of Appeals, which they have done. And the one that's the key in that is not Trump's lawyer. Ashley Merchant, who represents the Roman guy, was the key that found the stuff that brought the hearing on Fannie. And so I'm not so sure that's bad news. It's mixed news for both sides. I guess we can say this on cable because I heard it on Greg Gutfield saying it. You know, he said that Wade, her boyfriend, or ex-boyfriend now, had to go if she was going to stay.
Right.
And so he fell on his sword, according to Greg Gutfield.
Don't say it.
Within 4 hours after she had fallen on a sword for years.
Oh, listen to you. Oh, my word. I am going to move. All right, Andy. Save us, Andy.
It's sort of like you can't unring a bell, Betsy. I'm sorry. Well, I mean, when you look at this with the Fannie Willis thing, and, you know, after it seemed like there was enough evidence to think, you know, that guy did take some taxpayer money. And
$500,000.
I'm agreeing with you, Wes.
Okay.
Damn, boy, damn. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that she should have been that egregious with it. And it was just very obvious at that point. But still, I mean, I think she'll still keep going after Trump with a vengeance. I mean, this has gone to a personal level now, more than anything. It is very personal.
Well, Betsy cut me off, but Andy, I don't think she'll ever do the case because I think the Court of Appeals or the Georgia Supreme Court will probably take her off.
She cut you off about 10 seconds too late.
Sorry,
Yes,
Mike.
she did.
I thought you were finished.
Well, after that, I would have ended on it too. But, you know, to go on even more when we go in about this settlement Miss Carroll got, you know, Donald Trump is one of these, I don't know how much cash he's got. He's like a lot of people in real estate. I mean, he's worth obviously a lot of money because he owns a lot of properties between him and the bank and everybody else. But so I don't know how that's going to work. I was a little surprised at how much they laid on him. I mean, that was a pretty good chunk of money any way you cut it. $1 million here, $1 million there. Before long, you're talking about real money. So, and I don't know how anybody can come up with that kind of money that quick.
Which is the reason a lot of people think that one will either get overthrown in New York by the Court of Appeals. But Supreme Court of New York, or that there will be a federal appeal because it's an unreasonable fine relative to the offense.
Well, and I guess that's tomato, tomato. I mean, you know, I guess unless you're the woman involved in it, you probably would look.
No, I thought you were talking about the 454 million. If you're talking about the sexual
Carroll.
abuse thing.
Yes,
yeah,
I've already gone to the other one.
I was
now.
on the wrong one.
Yeah, well, you still on the first one, so I'm just trying to move on.
There's so many, it does get confusing.
Yeah.
I know.
It does, but, you know, and I think it will be a reduced amount, but it will still be significant, I think.
All right, Wes, you're just jumping at the bit.
Well, Betsy, you know I'm not a Trump apologist, and I'm not going to sit here and defend him, but the reality is facts are stubborn things. This is not bad news for Trump. It's bad news for every person in America. The law that he's being prosecuted for in New York was passed in 1956 to protect consumers from repeat fraudulent actors. The thinking was if you're stuck for $20, $30, $40, it's not worth filing a lawsuit. So the prosecutor can step in, someone who's doing this in a big way, and file the lawsuit and protect hundreds of thousands of people. This has never been prosecuted to this extent in the past. The fact of the matter is all of the loans that he's being prosecuted for were paid back and paid back on time. Dutch Bank neither complained, filed any charges. They did their own appraisals on the Trump properties. If this continues, and whether it's the Georgia case, whether it's the 2 or 3 in New York, this is a banana republic. We can't continue to bring charges against people that we disagree with politically. That's just a fact. And a $500 million fine, and they're going to take his property on Monday. We're recording on Friday. This is egregious. It shouldn't happen. And again, I'm not going to support some of what Trump's done, but this is way beyond anything that should ever happen in America, Betsy.
And I do not think that all of these charges have been trumped up. I think that he committed these crimes, and his family.
crime?
That wasn't a crime.
Well,
The big one wasn't a crime.
his family and his court has found that, well, his business, the Trump
Two of the
business.
three you brought up
all-
are civil suits, not criminal suits.
Well, all of these years, they have misguided, they have misdirected the tax people about raising, and you know, when they wanted a loan, the property was so much more valuable than when they were paying taxes on it.
And
And I
that's why-
think the big amount is because of how many years this had gone on. And I know that one of the things that Trump says is that he has been a witch hunt, that it's been a witch hunt, and he's done nothing wrong. Well, he did do something wrong, and they would not have brought him to trial if he had not. And so we'll just see it. And I think, I don't know, you know, as we go along, you've got all these levels that he'll be taking it through, that he has a right to go and file
Yeah.
the different
The
You know,
courts
for
are
a long
doing-
time,
on
we,
up.
I think, have all pretty much agreed, it looked like the one in Georgia was the most serious. It no longer looks that way because of the prosecutor herself has been so wounded. The CNN article even that I looked up and read before I came today, Betsy, CNN, that, you know, that right-wing source, CNN.
I know CNN. It's that Fox
He described
Entertainment
her,
channel I don't watch.
the judge described her, Willis's fiery testimony as unprofessional and having the odor of mendacity.
Oh, odor of mendacity, okay.
Well, and the thing about
And
it,
the
Mike,
thing
that
about
they-
it-
Already under appeal, it's not going to be heard before the
But
election.
These
Guys-
prosecutors are ensuring Trump's reelection in November.
Well, the one thing I'd like, is that RICO case still floating around? Because there was one.
Well, that is the RICO.
Yeah,
case
that-
in
that
Indiana.
is the Yeah, RICO. Georgia.
Well, but see.
But
here-
AOC said RICO wasn't a crime yesterday.
Well, you got to look at
She's
what
not
the
on
RICO
trial.
statutes actually started
ought to
out.
be.
No, she
It,
shouldn't.
it actually started out as where they could go after organized crime.
Right.
That is a criminal organization that exists for no other reason than to commit crime. And they also did that with the Hells Angels and a lot of other ones. So, and that's why I was a little confused when you said what you said. I said, that's not the RICO statutes. I mean, RICO is.
No,
got
what
to-
I was referring to was the New York statute.
Oh, okay, all right,
All
I'm
right.
with you now. I
And-
mean, it's confusing. I
New
mean,
York, New York case is civil. The only one of these three Betsy brought up is the one in Georgia's criminal.
And going on to the one in Georgia, we're talking about Fannie Willis's personal life and her personal, and can you, now, it may not be that people agree with what she did, but the fact that the people that are on trial are the people that tried to steal the election and tried to change the votes in Georgia, and that's
We're
President
not
Trump.
talking about her personal life. We're talking about her lying under oath and getting
Oh,
caught
well.
doing it
And
Blatantly.
of course,
blatantly, and her boyfriend, and then their ex-partner are the ones that spill the beans through text messages.
Meanwhile, in
And
New
me-
York, a judge has ruled that now they have to have somebody to go through his personal finances for the next 3 years
well,
over this. It makes,
It is.
you
yeah,
cannot
as you can
charge
tell-
people and prosecute people based on political belief. That is
And-
just way
well,
beyond
I
the
think
pale.
the Georgia case is a little bit more. They've got him on tape saying to that governor, find me 1,300 whatever vote, or 1,000 votes.
He lost. He's not president.
I
But-
understand, but there was a criminal intent.
Well, so is that any less than Hillary, who did the same
Oh,
thing 4
now.
years earlier?
I
Said the
wonder
election
when
was
we were going to
stolen?
get back to
Accept the
Hillary. Can we go back to Bill Clinton next? All right, y'all, we can spend the whole show talking about this, but we're going to move on. We'll probably come back to this later on, and another segment as we see how all of it unfolds. President Biden is traveling to battleground states after his impressive State of the Union speech. He's talking to voters about his accomplishments during his term in office. People are listening, but will they remember by the November election? And Wes, start us off.
I would refer the question back to you. You said impressive speech. Impressive to whom? He was late getting to his own speech. Can you imagine
Oh,
being late to the
Wes.
State of the Union?
Oh, who is?
Oh,
Well, he
Wes.
was drinking Red Bull, so he'd have some.
Oh,
Apparently.
listen to you all are just
He was an angry
terrible.
old man shouting at the American public. I will give him credit for the closing paragraph. That 15 seconds was fine.
Oh, Wes.
But Mike, you know, the best two words in any sermon or speech is in conclusion, and he did knock that one out. But Betsy, even the CNN fact checkers shot holes in nearly everything he said. Yes, it will be remembered in November, more importantly in August at the convention, and I still think there's a pretty good chance Biden is not the nominee.
Oh, and your little genie in the sky and all that. You've got this special contact with the Democratic Party, huh? It's not going to be President Biden.
If Biden runs, Republicans win, period.
Oh, I don't
across
think
the
so.
board.
And
And that speech is good enough
I just really
reason.
think that you and I watch different speeches. But Andy, straighten him out.
Well, and I'll be honest, Wes, I thought he did a really good job. I mean, really, if you just look at the presentation of how things had been in the past, I thought he really pulled.
It was the most partisan State of the Union in the history of the world.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness!
It was-
goodness.
I
it
mean,
was-
how many of them? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more partisan than that one.
Not more
was.
partisan than that.
Well, I
one.
mean, when you got everybody out there screaming, and that woman from Georgia's out there, say her name, say her name.
Well, he couldn't. He didn't even know her name.
Oh,
Well, he pulled the thing out and read it. Well, he did because he had it right there. And
It was a
and
football
he
coach
said it.
somewhere.
But the thing of it is, when you get into this time of the year, you are really getting into partisan races. And what he did was no different than any other president running for re-election. Should they step out of that during State of the Union? Yes, I think they all should. I mean, I really do. But, you know, hard to believe, Wes, there is politics in Washington. In all
Really?
things. I mean, shocking, just shocking. And that's just the way the game is played. I don't like it particularly. I don't know how we change that. But I just wish we could see some more statesmen step forward. But I'm afraid that's an extremely endangered species.
on behalf of 30% of the people of Cleveland County, thank you for sticking to your guns and trying to put a good spin on that, Andy.
Well, I thought it was
I
good.
thought it was
I'm
good,
not
too.
lying. I mean, I thought
I
he
thought
did
he
good.
was forceful.
He
and
was forceful.
He was unafraid.
He was like
calling
Bernie
out the
Sanders and
Republicans.
what's that woman?
Oh, my
Oh,
goodness.
that
That's so angry all
green
the
lady?
time.
Okay, that Marjorie Green lady. All right, Mike, tell us your spin.
Well, I thought he was angry.
Oh,
I thought he either drank too much Red Bull or they had given him an injection of something to give him energy, because since then he's been right back slurring his words
listen to
on
you.
the campaign trail. But you talked about his accomplishments, he said. Well, you know, he didn't mention he's created the highest era of inflation since the 1970s.
That's going down.
That is not going down because they're putting off lowering interest rates because they know it's not going down.
We'll see.
And
3.2 is a lot different than what it was. Mike.
yeah, but the underlying what people really buy, if you do just the groceries and the fuel, you've got 30% increase in the last 3 or 4 months just in fuel, according to what I'm reading.
It's sort of like shutting down the government.
He's
with
completely failed on border security from the time he took office. We've got triple the number of people crossing the border. He won't do anything. All he has to do is reverse his executive order on day one on that. He botched the withdrawal from Afghanistan. He couldn't even say Laken Riley's name correctly. And then he apologized for using the word illegal aliens. Dear Lord Jesus, this is the president of the United
I
States.
totally
God help
disagree,
us.
but I think we need to go to a break, y'all. We'll come back and do more political smackdown.
This week, I am an old team manning the second. And to my right,
Is this a European version of the show?
What just happened?
I have no
Am I on the
idea.
right show?
I have no idea.
It's great to be here.
Yes, it is. We've got Temptation Eyes, Tim Foster.
Chanel 19.
Yeah, the Tim approved.
If you want to smell like Tim Foster.
Tim endorsed. I like it. And for those of you that do not speak Tunisian, welcome to Meet
Do we
Me,
want to do that again?
the movies.
Welcome back to this edition of Political Smackdown. We're going to go on to another political question, but we're going to go to the state.
But we were having so much
Oh, I
fun.
know, Mike. You were just dying to say more untrue things or embellished things, shall we
Okay.
say. All right, the primary has come and gone due to its early date of March 5th. In the future, will our state stay with the Super Tuesday group's date, or will it be moved to a later time, say like in May? What do you think, Andy?
I think it's going to stay where it's at, to be honest, Betsy. As long as we have these front-loaded presidential primaries, it's just the way it's going to be, because everybody, well, and let's face it, it's about the Benjamins too, because when you're one of these first ones, you've got all of that money being dumped in here for all the printers, Wes, and the people with TV stations and cable outlets and you name it. And then you got the people that they put in to actually run the campaigns in the primary states. And I just don't see that it's going to change. I think it's weird, though, that here we are in March, and we've already got our presidential nominees.
Right.
I mean, I went back and did a little reading back as far back as '76 when Jimmy Carter ran. There was a bunch of them still didn't know they were getting into it. And I mean, Iowa and New Hampshire had already come and gone. So I'd like to think that we could have a more thoughtful process than this. I do not think that New Hampshire and Iowa have got some clairvoyant powers that they feel like they can determine who is the best president candidate. And I don't believe that. I just don't. And I really think what we need to look at is regional primaries. Maybe do the Northeast this one, Southeast here, Southwest here, Northwest there, and do it where, and it'll help the candidates on travel quite a bit. If you know you're just going to do a 6-state tour like that, I mean, can you imagine, Wes? I mean, that would make things so much simpler for everybody. I think that's the way to go. I don't see it happening, but I mean,
If you're going to allow the
Wes.
southern states to vote first, I'm all for it, because we're the ones that should be determining. I have
Okay.
no problem with that. Yeah, Super Tuesday, I'm glad North Carolina finally moved up. North Carolina is too important in the nation's economy and the nation's history to not be an early state with a very loud voice. So I'm glad it happens. I do have a problem with candidates being determined this early. We talked about this a little bit last week. Betsy, you weren't here, but we've got party nominees that are sitting on the sideline for 9 months before they're likely going to be elected in November. I don't think that's healthy, but I'm glad we've got an early primary. North Carolina should be, and historically has been, at the forefront. If you remember, North Carolina was the first state Ronald Reagan won, but it was 1976, not 1980.
And Jesse Helms really pulled it out for him.
No question about that. But North Carolina has been a leader and should be. I'm glad we've got an early primary. I do wonder about having them this early.
And about having to file before Christmas. Go
The
ahead,
only
Mike.
solution to that is to have a presidential primary in March and let the rest of them be in May.
Well, we tried that, and that's
But-
confusing as all get
Well,
out.
It's
and it's also
expensive.
expensive
It's
because you're running
expensive.
another statewide primary. But I don't know.
Well, that shouldn't bother the Democrats.
The other way
I
around
know we
that,
have so much money.
the other way around that would be somehow to get it to where you didn't have New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina in February. Move those up to mid-March or April or something. I don't know.
But the beauty of our system, states do the
I
nominations.
understand, so there's no real
And I
way
think
to
it's
do it.
great that states do that.
But I don't
agree.
see-
They're individual. It is not a national thing. It's a state thing.
So Andy and I can agree about something today. I think it's gonna stay in March.
And I think
Well-
it's going to stay in March also.
But
When
I still like the regional thing.
I like
you
the
you
regional
rotate
thing.
it around every
But if
cycle.
they do that.
I mean, it could work,
And-
I think.
And talking about moving New Hampshire, I campaigned twice in New Hampshire for a presidential candidate. And those people in New Hampshire take it so seriously that they're the first state. And I don't think that, I know they're a small state, but they can be really loud. Well, I think we are all four in agreement that it's going to stay in March. Moving on to our fourth question. The Republican candidate for governor is Mark Robinson, and the Republican candidate for superintendent of instruction is a lady by the name of Michelle Mara. Both have made national news since their primary election day with their controversial tweets and statements that have drawn the national spotlight. What does their election say about our state? Go ahead, Wes.
The Republican Party voted, that's who was chosen, I do think they both are giving some fodder as we come into Labor Day and election season to the Democrats, but that's who the party chose, so.
All right, Andy?
Well, I'm concerned about both of them, but Michelle Mara has been the one that really hasn't had a lot of press. I mean, Robinson has pretty much just sucked the air out of it. What it boils down to is she is a registered nurse. She homeschools her children. She accused Catherine Truitt, longtime Republican educator and superintendent, that she was allowing pedophiles to run loose in the public schools, that they were some kind of training ground or something. I mean, stuff that's just, she has no business being superintendent of public instruction because she doesn't believe in public education. So she needs to find something else to do. But it's a scary thing, and as a former teacher, I know that you are overly concerned. Because
Yes.
Catherine Truitt, I thought, did a fine
She was a
job.
yes, she did. And everybody was so surprised, I was, when Catherine was defeated. All right, Mike?
Well, let me just start out by saying, in the primary, I voted for Catherine Truitt and Dale Falwell.
And our ballots look just alike, I think.
You went down swinging on it too, Mike.
And they weren't the only two I voted for that didn't win. It's that way every time when we have so many people on a ballot. But at any rate, Robinson is a known entity. We've known what he is. He will run strong. That'll be a close race, as governor's races always are. In fact, I looked it up this morning. In 2020, Donald Trump won North Carolina with 2,758,700 votes, roughly. Mark Robinson won North Carolina with 2,800,600 votes. He had several tens of thousands of votes more than Donald Trump. And the reason he has an excellent chance of winning is because he's an African American. And a lot, not a majority, but a fair number of African American voters will want the first black governor. So I think that one will be a close race. The other girl, I don't know. I think the jury is really out, and a lot of us will have a lot of soul searching to do before November to see how that plays out.
And while Robinson does make some statements, he's a dynamic speaker and individual.
This is what I told. I can tell it now. When I talked to Dale Falwell, the LGC, or just in private conversation way back, he was going to run. I said, Mr. Treasurer, charisma trumps intellect and policy wonk, and he's got the charisma.
And,
doubt.
But I think that you'll see more information coming out about the controversial statements that both of these candidates make. And as we go into the election
You know you're
season.
going to see
The
a
good
lot
news,
of
they're-
Einstein as well.
They're both running against
But-
socialists.
Oh, listen at you. And well, another show, but we've got to do our lightning round. All right, Andy, take it away.
Well, for the first time ever, sports betting is completely legal anywhere in North Carolina. And this is first ACC and NCAA tournament that's true. And I can only imagine how many people lost money the other night when North Carolina State won. Who would have thought? I know one of my neighbors was complaining about it. He never would say how much he lost, but he said, I don't know if I should be doing this or not.
All right, Mike.
Well, this week, the North Carolina Court of Appeals upheld the ruling of a local Superior Court judge who was in Alamance County, Florida, a couple years ago. And the Confederate monument, according to the NC State of Appeals, cannot be removed in Alamance County on the court square because a state law prohibits it from being moved unless it meets certain criteria that this one does not meet. And that'll probably go to the state Supreme Court. Why in the world people care whether a relic of history is there or not is beyond me, but it's been controversial.
All right, Wes, what have you researched this week?
Well, in the 1940s, we went to war. That war had nothing to do with the German people. It dealt with an evil tyrant, Adolf Hitler. We prosecuted that war with a vengeance and no consideration of a ceasefire. In doing so, we freed a continent. Today, our leaders are criticizing our most staunch ally, the Free Nation of Israel, even calling for its elected leader to step down
All
over
right.
a fight.
Oh, excuse me.
Not with 2 million Palestinians, but with their elected Hamas leadership that attacked Israel and still holds Americans hostage. Meanwhile, Betsy, there's not a word from the administration about 11 million people now under gang rule only miles from our border in Haiti. All the while we prosecute political rivals and, excuse the pun, on trumped up charges while watching an invasion occur on our southern border and fighting all attempts to curb that. Sometimes you just have to shake your head.
And on that, we shall leave you. We thank you for being with us today and tune in next week for Political Smackdown.